Hey guys! Tonight we're going to explore what it was really like to be a medieval assassin, and why it was a career path born from abject misery rather than mystique and adventure. Picture this. You're not a cloaked hero leaping across moonlit rooftops, a glint of steel in your hand. Instead, you're crouched in a filthy alley, the overwhelming stench of stale ale and unwashed humanity clinging to your rough-spun tunic. Your target isn't some great tyrant in a shining castle, but perhaps a wool merchant who angered the wrong guildmaster. And your only escape plan involves blending in with a herd of goats being driven to market. The odds of you surviving this little thought experiment are, let's be honest, historically abysmal. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It makes a huge difference. Let us know where you're listening from and what time it is for you down in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The world doesn't begin for you with a secret initiation or a whispered prophecy. It begins with the familiar, damp chill of morning seeping through the wattle and daub walls of your family's hovel. Before you even open your eyes, the day's first sensation is the smell. It's a thick, complex stew of odors. The damp, musty scent of the packed earth floor, the sharp tang of ammonia from the corner where the chickens roost, and the sweet, cloying smell of sweat from the 5 other bodies tangled around you on the single straw mattress. You've slept in your clothes, of course, the same simple, scratchy wool tunic and leggings you'll wear until they either disintegrate or are claimed by a luckier sibling upon your death. The concept of pajamas is a distant dream, somewhere in the same category as a roof that doesn't leak and eating until you're full. You wriggle free from the pile of siblings, careful not to step on your grandmother who sleeps closest to the dying embers of the hearth. Her coughing is a constant, rasping soundtrack to your life, a wet, percussive rhythm that promises a grim future. Outside, the world is a smear of gray. There is no birdsong, just the grunting of the pig in its muddy pen next to the door and the lowing of the village's shared oxen. Your first task of the day is to relieve yourself. There's no private chamber for this, no comfortable solitude. You simply find a discreet-ish spot behind the hovel, adding to the general miasma that hangs over the village like a shroud. You avert your eyes from your neighbors doing the same. It's a courtesy, a small illusion of dignity in a life that affords very little. Breakfast is a lump of coarse, dark bread, dense enough to stop a stray arrow. You chew it slowly, methodically, softening it with saliva because there is nothing to wash it down with. The water in the village well is brackish and tastes of rust, best saved for boiling, and milk from the family's scrawny goat is a luxury reserved for the youngest and the sickest. As you eat, your father is already gathering his tools, a heavy, crude scythe and a wooden mallet. He doesn't speak. Words are an expense, and he has none to spare this early. His face is a roadmap of hardship, etched with deep lines of sun, wind, and worry. He looks 40, but he's likely not yet 30. You are a serf. This isn't just a job title. It's the definition of your existence. You don't own the land you work. You don't even really own yourself. You are bound to this patch of earth, this manor, as surely as the oxen are bound to their yoke. You belong to the Lord, A man you've seen only a handful of times, a remote, godlike figure on a fine horse, surrounded by men with swords. His local representative, the reeve, is a far more immediate and unpleasant reality. The reeve is the one who ensures the Lord gets his due, which is, to put it mildly, most of everything. Today, you're working the Lord's demesne, his personal fields. It's back-breaking, soul-crushing labor under a sky that is either blistering hot or weeping a cold, miserable rain. You are part of the great medieval machine of the three-field system. A simple but effective rotation. One field for wheat or rye, one for peas, oats, or beans, and one left fallow, unplanted, to allow the soil to regain some of its strength. It's a sustainable system that keeps the manor fed, but it demands relentless toil. Your job is to weed. All day. You crawl on your hands and knees, your fingers raw and your back screaming in protest, pulling thistle and nettle from between the young shoots of wheat. The sun beats down on your neck. You wrap a damp rag around your head, but it provides little relief. The world shrinks to the few inches of dirt in front of your face. Dirt, weed, wheat shoot. Dirt, weed, wheat shoot. This is the rhythm of your life. Your only break is a midday meal, which is more of that same dense bread and, if you're lucky, a sliver of hard, salty cheese. You huddle in the shade of a lone oak tree with the other villagers. The conversation is sparse. Gossip about who is sick, complaints about the reeve, speculation about the harvest. Someone might share a crude joke, eliciting a few weary chuckles. It's a brief respite, a moment to feel the ache in your bones settle into a deeper, more permanent state. You watch the children, some as young as 6 or 7, carrying water or scaring crows from the fields. There is no school, no playtime as we would know it. There is only work, and the brief, exhausting sleep that separates one day of work from the next. This life grinds you down, but it also sharpens certain senses. You become acutely aware of your environment. You can tell the time of day by the angle of the sun with uncanny accuracy. You can predict the weather by the feel of the air and the behavior of insects. You notice things. You notice the way the reeve's eyes linger on the fuller-figured daughters of the village. You notice the slight limp the blacksmith acquired after a horse kicked him last spring. You notice which stones are loose in the wall of the churchyard, and which floorboards creak in the tiny village alehouse. Your world is small, but you know its every detail with an intimacy born of endless repetition. It's this attention to detail that first gets you noticed. Not by anyone you'd expect. He's a stranger, though he's been in the village for a week, posing as a traveling tinker. His clothes are unremarkable, but unlike yours, they are not patched or threadbare. His hands are clean. He doesn't have the stoop of a laborer or the gut of a merchant. He sits outside the alehouse, sharpening knives for a small fee, but his eyes are always moving, cataloging, assessing. He watches you one afternoon as you're returning from the fields. A cart, overloaded with firewood, has shed a wheel on the muddy track that serves as a road. The driver, a fat, apoplectic man from the next village, is screaming at his son, who is on the verge of tears. Other villagers pass by, offering useless advice or simply shaking their heads. It's not their problem. You stop. You don't say a word. You walk around the cart, your eyes taking in the angle of the axle, the deep rut in the mud, the position of the heavy logs. You pick up a fallen branch, test its strength, and then use it to lever the axle up, just a fraction of an inch. You instruct the boy, with a quiet authority that surprises even yourself, to kick a large stone into the gap. It's a temporary fix, but it holds. The wheel is wrestled back on, and the cart is able to limp onwards. The driver gives you a grunted thanks and nothing more. But the tinker saw. He saw the way you analyzed the problem, the economy of your movement, the dispassionate way you took control of the situation. He saw something beyond the dull-eyed resignation of a typical peasant. Later that evening, he finds you by the stream where you're attempting to wash a week's worth of grime from your tunic. He doesn't approach you with a grand proposition. He simply offers you a piece of dried meat. It's a staggering luxury. The flavor explodes in your mouth, salty and rich, a stark contrast to the bland pottage that is your usual evening meal. This pottage, by the way, is a sort of never-ending stew, a permanent resident of the cauldron over the fire, with new scraps, a bit of foraged mushroom, a wilted cabbage leaf, a sinewy piece of bone, added daily. It's less a recipe and more a slow-motion compost pile. As you eat the meat, the stranger talks. His voice is low and even. He speaks of the world beyond the village, of cities filled with more people than you can imagine, of ships that sail on an endless ocean. He doesn't offer you a life of adventure. He offers you something far more tangible. He offers you a full belly. Every day. He offers you a roof that doesn't leak. He offers you a purpose beyond the endless cycle of planting and harvesting. He asks you simple questions. Are you happy here? The question is so absurd you almost laugh. Happiness is not a concept that applies to your life. There is only survival. Do you want more than this? He asks, gesturing to the squalid huts, the muddy lane, the oppressive weight of the manor. Historians still argue whether the concept of serfdom was universally as rigid as we imagine, or if local customs and individual relationships with a lord allowed for a surprising degree of personal agency. But for you, in this moment, there is no agency. There is only the mud, the hunger, and the crushing certainty that this life is all there will ever be. Until now. The man doesn't use the word assassin. He doesn't speak of killing or contracts. He speaks of service, of allegiance to a higher cause, of restoring balance. It's all vague, couched in language that sounds noble, important. He tells you that your ability to see, to notice things, is a rare gift. A gift that is being wasted in a muddy field. He explains that there are men, powerful men, who disrupt the proper order of things. Men whose greed and ambition cause suffering for thousands. His organization, he says, simply prunes the dead branches from the tree of society. It's a tidy, almost pleasant metaphor. He makes it sound like a form of civic gardening. You are not a fool. You know that pruning branches is a euphemism. You understand, on a primal level, that this path he's offering is dark and dangerous. But what is your alternative? To stay here and watch your body break under the strain of labor? To marry a village girl and father a new generation of serfs to suffer the same fate? To die of a rotten tooth or a winter cough at the age of 35? Your grandmother's hacking fits echo in your memory. There's a strange but true historical tidbit that the poorest of the poor had the right of gleaning, the right to go through the fields after the harvest was complete and pick up any stray stalks of grain that were missed. It was a recognized form of charity, the absolute bottom rung of the food ladder. That's your life. You are a gleaner, surviving on the scraps left behind by others. This man is offering you a seat at the table. He tells you to think about it. He will be leaving in 2 days. If you want to go with him, you are to meet him at the old standing stone on the ridge, an hour before dawn. You are to tell no one. The next day, as you work in the fields, the world looks different. The familiar motions are the same, but your mind is elsewhere. You see the futility of it all with a new, painful clarity. You look at the faces of your fellow villagers, etched with the same tired resignation as your father's. You see your own future in them. And you feel a surge of something you have never truly felt before. A desperate, clawing ambition. Not for wealth or for glory, but for escape. The choice, when it comes down to it, is not a choice at all. It's an inevitability. It's the desperate lunge of a drowning man for a piece of driftwood. The life of a peasant in this era is a slow, grinding death. This stranger, this tinker, is offering you a different kind of death, perhaps a quicker and more violent one, but he is also offering you a life first. A life where you might be warm and fed, and for the first time, have some control over your own destiny. You are not joining a noble brotherhood. You are not being initiated into a world of glamour and intrigue. You are a starving animal chewing off its own leg to escape a trap. And as you lie awake on your final night in the hovel, listening to the familiar sounds of sleep and sickness, you know that before the sun rises, you will be gone. You will walk away from the only world you have ever known, into a darkness far deeper than the pre-dawn gloom, all for the promise of a piece of meat and a chance to be someone other than a nameless serf, forgotten by history. The walk to the standing stone is the longest journey of your life. Each step is a severance, a cutting of the invisible threads that bind you to your past. The familiar hovel, the sleeping shapes of your family, the smell of the pigsty, it all recedes behind you into the pre-dawn darkness. You carry nothing but the clothes on your back and a cold, hard knot of fear and hope churning in your stomach. Every snapping twig sounds like an alarm bell. Every hoot of an owl feels like a judgment. You expect a shout to come from the village, your father's angry voice, but there is only silence. It's as if the world has already forgotten you. The standing stone, a relic of a much older time, looms out of the mist on the ridge, cold and indifferent. The tinker is there, a dark shape against the slightly less dark sky. He isn't carrying a tinker's bag now, just a simple pack. He nods once, a gesture of acknowledgement, not of welcome. There are no words of encouragement. The transaction is complete. You showed up. Your new life has begun. The journey that follows is a blur of exhaustion and revelation. For 2 days you walk, following paths you never knew existed, skirting villages and avoiding main roads. The tinker, you learn his name is Valerius, though you suspect it's as real as his previous profession, moves with a tireless, predatory grace. He teaches you to walk without sound, to place your feet heel to toe, to use the contours of the land to remain unseen. He points out things you'd never noticed before. The tracks of a deer, the direction of the wind from the bend of the grass, the best places to find clean water. You eat better than you ever have in your life. Smoked fish from his pack, snares that catch plump rabbits, edible roots you never knew existed. But there's a price for every meal. Every stop is a lesson. Every moment of rest is a test. Your instructor's idea of a warm-up involves more running than your entire village did in a year, usually while carrying a rock that seems to have its own personal gravity. Your destination is not a grand, hidden fortress. There are no banners, no guards pacing crenellated walls. Instead, you arrive at a place that perfectly embodies the nature of your new profession. It is a place that hides in plain sight. It's a derelict monastery, tucked away in a remote, heavily wooded valley, supposedly abandoned a century ago after a plague. From the outside, it is ruins. The bell tower has collapsed, the roof of the chapel is gone, and ivy chokes the crumbling stone walls. But Valerius leads you through a series of winding passages, behind a false wall in what was once a wine cellar, and into the living heart of the complex. The air changes. It's still cool and damp, but it's the clean damp of stone, not the putrid damp of decay. Torches burn in sconces, revealing polished floors, tidy dormitories, a well-stocked kitchen, and a training yard. There are other people here, perhaps 24 of them. Men and a few women. None of them look like soldiers. They are quiet, watchful, and they all have the same unnerving stillness you first saw in Valerius. This is your new home, your school, your crucible. The training is not a curriculum of exciting new skills. It is a systematic and agonizing process of erasure. They must first erase the peasant from your bones. The slump in your shoulders, born of deference and hard labor, is corrected with brutal exercises that strengthen your back until you stand unnaturally straight. The shuffle in your walk is drilled out of you by forcing you to move across floors covered in sand, then pebbles, then dried leaves, until you can do so without making a sound. You are taught to control your breathing, to slow your heart rate even after strenuous exertion, to make your own body a silent partner in your work. Your body is the first tool they must forge, and they do it with fire and hammers. You are pushed to the absolute limits of your physical endurance, day after day. You run the perimeter of the valley until your lungs feel like they are full of hot sand. You climb the sheer, crumbling walls of the monastery with your bare hands and feet until your fingers are bloody stumps. You practice tumbling and falling, learning to absorb impacts that would break the bones of a normal person. You are kept on a diet that is nutritious but spare, enough to build muscle but not enough to ever feel truly full. Hunger, you are taught, is a tool. It sharpens the senses. It reminds you of your own mortality. It keeps you from growing soft. Then comes the education in violence. Forget the chivalrous swordplay of knights or the frantic brawling of tavern toughs. What you learn is a precise, brutal, and deeply personal science of killing. Your primary weapon is the dagger. You spend hundreds of hours practicing with it, not swinging it wildly, but learning its every possibility. You learn the thrusts that can slip between ribs, under the jaw, through the soft spot of the temple. You learn how to use it to sever tendons, to puncture lungs, to find the femoral artery in the leg. You practice on dummies stuffed with straw and marked with anatomical charts, and later, on pig carcasses that mimic the resistance of human flesh. The goal is never a fair fight. The goal is a silent, efficient, and irreversible conclusion. You learn other tools. The garrote wire, easy to conceal and utterly silent. The sap, a leather bag filled with sand or lead shot, for a quiet blow to the back of the head. You learn to use the most mundane objects as weapons. A heavy candlestick, a length of rope, a sharpened piece of wood. You are taught that your greatest weapon is your environment. A loose stone at the top of a staircase, a puddle of oil on a dark corner, a frayed saddle strap, all can be more effective than a sword if you have the eyes to see their potential. One of the most terrifying parts of your education is in the art of poisons. This is the domain of a woman named Lyra, an herbalist whose quiet demeanor belies a terrifyingly comprehensive knowledge of everything that can kill you. She teaches you the plants of the forest, the delicate white flowers of hemlock, whose juice paralyzes from the feet up, leaving the mind clear until the lungs stop working, the shiny black berries of nightshade, which bring on delirium and madness, the beautiful purple monkshood, also called wolfsbane, a single drop of which can disrupt the heart and bring about a swift, agonizing end. You learn how to harvest them, how to process them, how to create tinctures and powders that are potent but difficult to detect. You learn which poisons are fast, which are slow, which mimic the symptoms of common illnesses like food poisoning or heart failure. This knowledge comes at a steep price. You also learn the subtle art of poison resistance, which mostly involves Lyra giving you tiny, non-lethal doses of something unpleasant, and you spending the rest of the day regretting that piece of dried meat that started this whole adventure. You endure fevers, cramps, and hallucinations. It's a brutal but necessary process. It's meant to save your life if a target ever tries to poison you, or if you are forced to test food for your own master. One quirky but practical lesson involves the bezoar stone, a hardened, undigested mass from the stomach of a goat or other ruminant, which was believed to be a universal antidote to poison. Lyra demonstrates how placing one in a cup of poisoned wine can, in some cases, absorb and neutralize the toxin. It's not foolproof, but in a world of primitive medicine, it's a treasured piece of fringe science. Beyond the physical, there is the far more difficult training of the mind. Valerius teaches you the art of observation, turning your natural peasant's awareness into a weapon. You are forced to sit in the training yard for hours and then recount every detail. How many stones were in the wall? The pattern of cracks on the floor? The number of leaves on a specific branch? You are taught to read people, to spot a liar by the flicker in their eyes, to gauge a man's intentions by the way he holds his hands, to assess the power dynamics of a room in a single glance. You learn to become a ghost, a person so unremarkable that they are instantly forgotten. You practice this by walking through the small, bustling kitchen during the busiest time of day. If anyone remembers seeing you, you have failed. You are taught how to lie. Not just small deceptions, but how to construct and inhabit an entirely new identity. You learn to change your accent, your posture, your entire way of being to become a convincing merchant, a traveling scholar, a humble pilgrim. You learn that the key to a good lie is to believe it yourself, which is made easier by the fact that your old life already feels like a half-remembered bad dream. You might even learn snippets of a thieves' cant, a secret slang used by criminals, allowing you to pass on or receive messages in a crowded market without anyone being the wiser. This entire process is underpinned by relentless psychological manipulation. Valerius and the other instructors are breaking you down and rebuilding you in their own image. They use a calculated blend of cruelty and kindness. One day, you might be punished with solitary confinement in a dark cell for a minor failure. The next, you might be praised for a well-executed maneuver and rewarded with an extra portion of food. This instability keeps you constantly off balance, desperate for their approval. They are stripping you of your identity, your pity, your empathy. They are teaching you to see people not as living, breathing souls, but as obstacles or objectives. The most profound lesson in this brutal curriculum comes not with a weapon, but with an animal. You are given a small dog to care for. You feed it, train it, and sleep with it by your side for warmth. It is the only source of uncomplicated affection in this cold, hard place. You grow to love it. Then, after several months, Valerius comes to you. He tells you that an important dignitary is visiting, one who is deathly afraid of dogs. The dog, he says, must be silenced. Permanently. He hands you a knife and tells you to do it, and to do it without making a sound. You look at the trusting eyes of the animal that adores you, and you are faced with the true meaning of this life you have chosen. It is the final erasure of the boy from the wheat field. You are learning the most important lesson of your trade. Attachment is a weapon that will only ever be used against you. Historians still argue whether secretive orders like the one you've joined had formal, centralized training structures, or if skills were passed down more informally from master to apprentice. As you stand there, knife in hand, the distinction feels irrelevant. This place, whatever its formal structure, is a factory that takes in broken people and churns out living weapons. The pain, the poisons, the psychological games, they are all part of the forging. They are burning away your humanity to leave behind something cold, sharp, and useful. And as you finally complete your dreadful task, you feel the last vestiges of the frightened peasant boy die, replaced by the chilling calm of the killer you are being trained to be. The transition from training to your first assignment is not marked by a ceremony or a formal graduation. There is no handshake, no diploma, no congratulations, you're now a certified killer. There is only a summons. Valerius calls you to his Spartan chamber, a room furnished with little more than a cot, a chest, and a large, detailed map pinned to the wall. He doesn't waste time with pleasantries. He simply points to a town on the map, a place you've never heard of, 100 leagues from here. There is a man, he says, a moneylender named Cassian. He has become inconvenient. That's all the justification you get. Inconvenient. It's a chillingly sterile word for a death sentence. Your briefing is a testament to the crude and often unreliable nature of medieval intelligence. There is no dossier with a photograph, no detailed schedule of the target's movements. What you get is a verbal description, pieced together from the whispers of informants and the observations of other agents. Cassian is fat, with a florid face and a limp in his left leg. He wears a gaudy gold ring on his right pinky finger. He frequents a specific tavern, the Gilded Pig, on the third night of every week. He lives in a stone house at the end of the weaver's quarter, a house with a red door and 2 guards who are, according to Valerius's source, more fond of cheap wine than they are of their duties. This is the sum total of the information you have to work with. It's a flimsy scaffold on which to build a murder. You are not sent out with a kit of specialized gadgets. Your equipment is as crude as the intelligence. You are given a sturdy, nondescript traveler's cloak, a new pair of boots that don't look too new, a small purse with enough silver to see you through a few weeks, and your dagger. The dagger is the only part of your gear that is of exceptional quality. It's perfectly balanced, its blade forged from fine steel, honed to a razor's edge. It feels cold and alive in your hand, a stark contrast to the rough, agricultural tools you grew up with. You are also given a small, clay vial. It contains a fast-acting paralytic, derived from a type of mushroom. It's not lethal on its own, Lyra had explained, but it will render a man helpless for the few crucial seconds you need. It's a single dose. There is no backup. The journey to the town is a lonely, nerve-wracking affair. You travel on foot, posing as a young man seeking work as a scribe's assistant, a plausible cover that explains your clean hands and slightly too good posture. You join a caravan for a portion of the way, sharing campfires with merchants and pilgrims. You keep to yourself, speaking little, observing everything. You practice the art of being forgettable, of fading into the background. Every approaching horseman on the road sends a jolt of adrenaline through you. Is it a patrol? A bandit? Someone who sees through your flimsy disguise? You are entering a world where every stranger is a potential threat, and every friendly face could mask a deadly intent. This is the beginning of the paranoia that will become your lifelong companion. When you finally arrive at the town, it is a chaotic, bewildering assault on the senses. It's larger than any place you've ever seen, a labyrinth of narrow, winding streets slick with mud and offal. The air is thick with the smells of baking bread, tanning leather, and human waste. The noise is a constant din. The clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the shouts of street vendors, the rumble of cartwheels on cobblestones. You find a cheap room in a crowded inn, a place where the sheets are questionable and the snores of the other guests are a constant chorus. For 2 days, you do nothing but watch. You are a ghost, a shadow, learning the rhythms of this new place. Your first task is to verify the intelligence. You find the weaver's quarter, a district of tall, narrow houses where the click-clack of looms is a constant sound. You locate the house with the red door. It's exactly as described. You see the 2 guards. They are indeed lazy, spending most of their time leaning on their spears, sharing a wineskin, and laughing loudly. They look less like professional soldiers and more like bored farmhands who were handed a weapon. This is a relief. Then you find the Gilded Pig. It's a noisy, smoky establishment filled with merchants, tradesmen, and a few off-duty city watchmen. You nurse a single cup of watered-down ale for hours, sitting in a dark corner, your eyes scanning the crowd. On the 3rd night, he appears. Cassian. He is unmistakable. The florid face, the expensive but tasteless clothes, the pronounced limp. And the ring. A large, ugly piece of gold that glints in the lamplight. Seeing him in the flesh is a strange, jarring experience. He is no longer an abstract concept, a name on a map. He is a real person. He laughs loudly, his jowls shaking. He pinches the serving girl, who recoils with a practiced smile. He is loud, obnoxious, and very, very alive. A cold knot forms in your stomach. This is not a pig carcass in the training yard. Now you must formulate a plan. Your training has taught you that the best approach is the simplest one. Complexity creates opportunities for failure. You could try to ambush him on the street, but the town is crowded, and a scream could bring the city watch down on you in moments. You could try to infiltrate his house, but that carries its own risks. The guards, lazy as they are still two men with pointy sticks. The house could have dogs, or a servant who sleeps by the door. You decide the tavern is the best location. It's loud, chaotic, and people are less observant when they are drinking. The plan is simple, almost insultingly so. You will wait for him to leave. The street outside is dark and narrow. You will accidentally bump into him. In that brief moment of contact, you will use the dagger. A single, quick thrust. Then you will melt back into the crowd. It's a plan that relies on speed, precision, and a healthy dose of luck. The mainstream historical fact is that urban environments in the Middle Ages were incredibly dangerous after dark. With no street lighting, patrols that were often corrupt or ineffective, and a populace that was quick to violence, simply walking home at night was a life-threatening gamble. This is the environment you are counting on. Your murder will be just another unfortunate incident in a city full of them. The night of the assassination arrives. You feel a strange calm settle over you, the same focus you felt when you were learning to walk silently on dried leaves. You are a tool, and you are about to be used for your intended purpose. You enter the Gilded Pig and take up your usual position in the corner. You watch Cassian drink, his laughter grating on your nerves. Hours pass. The tavern grows louder, smokier. Finally, he pushes himself up from his table, tossing a few coins to the serving girl. He is drunk, unsteady on his feet. This is your moment. You follow him out into the street. The cool night air is a shock after the stuffy tavern. The street is empty, just as you hoped. His footsteps, and your own silent ones, are the only sounds. You quicken your pace. He hears you, and turns, his face a mask of drunken confusion. "What do you want?" he slurs. This is where everything goes wrong. As you lunge forward, a door opens down the street, spilling a rectangle of yellow light onto the cobblestones. A woman shouts something, a domestic argument. The sudden light and sound startle you. Your foot slips on a patch of wet garbage. It's a tiny mistake, a fractional loss of balance, but it's enough. Your carefully planned, precise thrust becomes a clumsy, desperate stab. You feel the dagger bite into flesh, but it's a glancing blow, not the clean, deep puncture you intended. It strikes his shoulder, not his chest. Cassian screams. It's not a dignified sound. It's a high-pitched, terrified shriek of pain and surprise. He stumbles back, clutching his shoulder, his eyes wide with shock. Your plan, your simple, elegant plan, has evaporated in an instant. The element of surprise is gone. You are left standing in a dark alley with a wounded, screaming man who is very much not dead. Panic, cold and absolute, floods your system. All your training, all the endless drills and mental conditioning, feels a million miles away. You are no longer a finely honed weapon. You are a terrified peasant boy in a dark alley who has just made a terrible, terrible mistake. Your first instinct is to run, to flee into the darkness and never look back. But the training, buried deep, asserts itself. An incomplete job is a failure. Failure means punishment. You lunge again, this time with a wild, desperate energy. Cassian, despite his wound and his drunkenness, has the adrenaline of a cornered animal. He swings his heavy cane, a thick piece of oak, and catches you on the side of the head. The world explodes in a flash of white light. You stagger back, your ears ringing. He turns and runs, his limp more pronounced now, shouting for the city watch. You have seconds. You scramble to your feet, your head throbbing. You can hear the sound of distant shouts, the clang of a bell. The alarm is being raised. You have failed. Utterly, catastrophically failed. Your first assignment. Your one chance to prove your worth. And you have failed. You don't even think. You just run. You flee in the opposite direction, plunging into the labyrinthine darkness of the city's back alleys. You knock over a stack of barrels, sending them clattering across the stones. You hear a dog bark, then another. The sounds of pursuit are getting closer. You are no longer the hunter. You are the prey. You remember Valerius's words. The mission is not over until you are safe. Safety feels like an impossible dream. You are lost, wounded, and being hunted in a strange city. Your first taste of the assassin's life is not the thrill of a successful kill, but the bitter, metallic taste of fear and failure. You have learned the hardest lesson of your new trade. Nothing ever goes according to plan. And the consequences of failure are swift, brutal, and very, very personal. You are alone, in the dark, and the night is full of terrors you have just unleashed. Your heart is a frantic drum against your ribs. The ringing in your head from the blow is a dull roar, but the adrenaline is a fire, burning away the pain. You run, plunging deeper into the ink-black arteries of the city. All your training, all those agonizing hours of practice, now come into focus not as a plan, but as pure, unthinking instinct. You don't run in the middle of the alleys. You stick to the deepest shadows along the walls. Your feet, shod in those well-made boots, find purchase on the slick stones without a sound. You hear the shouts of the watch behind you, a disorganized, angry clamor. They are loud. They are clumsy. They are carrying torches that illuminate them perfectly while ruining their own night vision. You are a creature of the dark. They are trespassers in your world. You vault over a low wall into someone's tiny garden, landing in a patch of herbs. The scent of crushed mint and rosemary rises in a fragrant cloud, a bizarrely pleasant sensation in the midst of your terror. You press yourself flat against the cold, damp earth behind a water barrel, your breathing shallow, controlled, just as Valerius taught you. You hear the guards thunder past the end of the alley, their torchlight painting a fleeting, dancing pattern on the wall above you. They don't even think to look. Why would they? You are just another shadow in a city full of them. But you can't stay here. The city gates will be sealed. A description of you, however vague, will be circulated by morning. A young man, medium height, dark cloak. It's not much, but it's enough to make every guard you pass look at you twice. You need to get out. Now. Your grand plan, which seemed so clever back at the inn, now looks like something a particularly dim-witted child would draw in the dirt with a stick. There was no contingency for this. No escape route. No safe house. The organization provides you with a target and a push. The rest is up to you. Failure is a solitary affair. Creeping from the garden, you make your way towards the Tanner's district, near the city's western wall. You know this area from your days of observation. You know it by its signature, overwhelming stench. And where there are tanners, there are carts. Carts that carry raw, stinking hides out of the city at first light to be processed at pits along the river. It's a desperate, disgusting gamble. You find the yard, a muddy quagmire surrounded by sheds. A large, two-wheeled cart is already half full, ready for its morning journey. You climb in, burrowing your way under the cold, slimy, and profoundly stinky animal skins. The stench is biblical, a physical assault on your nostrils that makes your eyes water, but at this moment, it is the most beautiful smell in the world, the smell of not being caught. It's an upgrade from your family hovel, in a way. You find an air pocket and settle in, your dagger clutched tight in your hand. The hours you spend in that cart are a unique form of torment. You are cold, cramped, and marinating in filth. But it gives you time to think. Time to replay the failure over and over in your mind. The slip, the scream, the flash of white light from the cane. Where did it go wrong? You analyze it with the cold detachment Valerius tried to instill in you. The intelligence was accurate, but thin. The plan was simple, but inflexible. But as you lie there, the truth of it begins to dawn on you. The failure wasn't just in the plan, it was in the tools. You were set up to believe you were a finely crafted instrument of death. But what are you, really? You are a man with a knife. You clutch your dagger. It's a beautiful piece of steel, sharp and deadly. But it has no magic. It can be deflected by a sudden movement, stopped by a thick leather jerkin, or rendered useless by a simple loss of footing. It requires you to be close enough to smell your target's stale wine breath. Close enough to see the surprise in his eyes, close enough for him to fight back. And what of your other, specialized, equipment? You feel the small, smooth shape of the clay vial in your tunic. The paralytic. You never even had a chance to use it. You had imagined a clean, clever application, a prick from a needle disguised in a ring, perhaps. But the reality is a clumsy vial that you would have had to uncork and somehow apply in the middle of a physical confrontation. It feels less like a secret weapon and more like a participation trophy for a murder you failed to commit. It is a tool for a perfect scenario, and the world is never perfect. This is the stark reality of your trade. You are not a creature of fantasy with an arsenal of wondrous gadgets. You have no grappling hook to scale walls in a single bound. You have your own bloodied fingers and the strength of your arms. You have no smoke bombs to vanish in a theatrical puff. You have the cover of a passing crowd or the blackness of a moonless night. You have no silenced crossbow that can kill from 100 paces. The bows you trained with were simple wooden longbows, powerful but unwieldy, impossible to conceal, and useless inside a building. Your primary tools are the ones you were born with, honed through pain and repetition: your body, your senses, and your mind. Everything else is secondary. Everything else is unreliable. Your thoughts turn to the poisons Lyra taught you about. You recited their names, their properties, their antidotes. But now you see the immense difficulty in their application. How do you get a man like Cassian to ingest wolfsbane? You can't just walk into a tavern and offer to buy the town's most suspicious moneylender a drink. You'd have to become a trusted servant, a cook, or a lover, a process of infiltration that could take months, even years, and carries its own enormous risks. Many poisons have a bitter taste. A single suspicious sip and the game is up. A non-lethal dose could create a very angry, and now very careful, enemy. Historians still argue whether the legendary lethality of groups like the Hashishin was due to esoteric, almost magical poisons, or simply their unparalleled skill with a basic blade in creating opportunities others could not. Lying in this cart, you strongly suspect it was the latter. The dagger is honest. It is messy and brutal, but it is reliable in its simplicity. Poisons are the weapons of scholars and schemers, not of men who work in dark alleys. Your training in Mithridatism, the practice of taking small doses of poison to build immunity, now seems less like a failsafe and more like a grim necessity. It's a tacit admission from your instructors that things will go wrong, that you might be exposed to your own toxins, or that an enemy might try the same tricks on you. It's a quirky, almost mythical practice, named for an ancient king, but for you, it's a deeply practical part of your crude toolkit. It's not about being immune. It's about surviving a dose that would kill a normal man, giving you a few precious hours to find an antidote or escape. The cart lurches into motion. You hear the gruff voice of the driver, the creak of the gate, the suspicious questions of a guard, and the driver's grumbled, angry response. The cart passes through. You are out. You have survived. But you have not succeeded. You stay hidden until you are miles from the city, then slip out when the driver stops to water his horse. You wash yourself as best you can in a cold stream, the smell of the tannery clinging to you like a second skin. You are alone, in the wilderness, with a failed mission hanging over your head. You have no idea what comes next. Do you go back to the monastery to face the wrath of Valerius? The punishment for failure would be severe, designed to be a lesson to you and all the other trainees. Or do you desert? Disappear and try to make a new life for yourself, forever looking over your shoulder for the shadows you left behind? For now, you just walk. You need to put distance between yourself and your failure. As you walk, you take stock of your true arsenal. It is not the dagger in its sheath or the vial in your pocket. Your true tools are your ability to endure hunger and cold, your knowledge of which plants are safe to eat, your skill at moving unseen through the forest. Your greatest asset is the desperate, cold-blooded ingenuity that made you see a stinking tanner's cart not as a pile of garbage, but as a carriage to freedom. You are not the hero of a story. You are not the villain. You are a craftsman, and your trade is death. But you have learned that the tools of this trade are far cruder and more demanding than you ever imagined. They are not glamorous or sophisticated. They are your own two hands, your own sharp eyes, and the desperate will to survive that drove you from the peasant's field in the first place. Your first mission taught you that it's not the quality of the tool that matters most, but the desperate creativity of the hand that wields it. And as you disappear into the woods, you know that your survival depends not on the plan, but on your ability to improvise when it all falls apart. The journey back to the monastery is a walk of shame, fueled by a gnawing dread that is colder and sharper than the hunger in your belly. Every league you cover brings you closer to judgment. The option to desert, to simply vanish into the vast, uncaring wilderness, was a fleeting temptation. But you know, with a chilling certainty, that the organization's memory is long. They found you once in the squalor of your village. They could find you again, and the penalty for desertion would be far worse than for mere failure. You are bound to them, not by an oath, but by the simple, terrifying fact that they are better at hunting than you are at hiding. So you walk back to face the music, feeling less like a returning operative and more like a stray dog slinking back to the master it has disappointed. When you finally arrive, limping and gaunt, no one greets you. The others in the training yard see you, their faces impassive, and their eyes hold a flicker of something, not pity, but a cold, clinical curiosity. They are watching to see what becomes of you. You are a living lesson. Valerius is waiting for you in the same chamber where he gave you the assignment. He doesn't look angry. He looks disappointed, which is infinitely worse. He listens in silence as you recount the entire miserable affair, from the slip on the garbage to your escape in the tanner's cart. You leave nothing out. You learned in your training that lying to him is impossible and foolish. When you finish, the silence hangs in the air, heavy and suffocating. You expect a sentence, a punishment of brutal, searing pain. But Valerius is more sophisticated than that. Your punishment is not a flogging, which you almost would have preferred. Instead, you spend a week in absolute solitary confinement in a stone cell, with nothing but water, a little bread, and your own failure for company. It's a masterclass in psychological torture, and you have to admit, far more effective than just getting hit a lot. In the dark, your mind becomes your own tormentor, replaying your mistakes on an endless loop. But something else happens in that cell. You realize Valerius didn't punish you for failing to kill Cassian. He punished you for getting caught. Your escape, your ingenuity with the cart, that's the only reason you're still alive. The lesson is clear. The mission is paramount, but survival through cleverness is the only currency that matters here. When you are released, blinking in the torchlight, you are weaker but also harder, colder. Valerius gives you a new assignment immediately. There is no probation period. A wolf that misses a rabbit is still a wolf, he says, his voice flat. It just needs a bigger target to restore its confidence. Your new target is a man named Baron Albrecht. He lives in a small castle called Greymarrow, situated on a rocky outcrop overlooking a strategic river crossing. He has been interfering with the organization's flow of goods and money along that river. He is, like Cassian, inconvenient. But unlike Cassian, he is not a soft target. His castle looks less like a home and more like a paranoid badger's fever dream, rendered in stone. Your briefing this time is slightly more detailed, but no less intimidating. You are given a rough sketch of the castle's layout, drawn by a disgruntled mason who worked on its recent repairs. You learn that the Baron is a cautious, cruel man who trusts no one. He has a personal guard of a dozen well-armed, loyal men-at-arms. He rarely leaves the castle. Getting to him will not be a simple matter of a dark alley and a quick knife. You will have to get inside his fortress. You will have to infiltrate. And here you come face to face with the true nightmare of your profession. The glamour of the assassin is in the kill. The reality is in the agonizing, terrifying, and mind-numbingly tedious process of infiltration. You spend the first week simply observing Greymarl from a distance, hidden in the woods on the opposite side of the river. The castle is a beast of stone and paranoia. It has a high curtain wall, topped with a crenellated walkway where sentries pace day and night. It's surrounded by a moat, but this is not the clear, romantic moat of storybooks. It's a stagnant, green-scummed ditch, filled with sewage, garbage from the castle kitchen, and the occasional dead animal. The only way across is a wooden drawbridge that leads to a formidable gatehouse. The gatehouse is a killing machine in miniature, with a heavy iron-banded door, a portcullis, and narrow slits for archers to fire through. Historians still argue whether the primary purpose of a castle's elaborate defenses was to repel a full-scale military siege, or to act as a day-to-day deterrent against raids and internal threats, essentially functioning as a very large, very aggressive safe deposit box. Looking at Greymarl, you suspect the latter. It is not designed to be comfortable. It is designed to be impenetrable to people like you. So, how do you get inside? Climbing the walls is a suicidal fantasy. Even if you could get across the foul-smelling moat without attracting attention, the stone is sheer and well-maintained. The guards on the wall are not the lazy drunks from your first mission. They are alert, scanning the surrounding landscape with professional boredom. A man trying to climb the wall would be spotted instantly and turned into a human pincushion. You briefly consider the garderobe chute, the castle's toilet, as a potential entry point, a classic of the genre. You can see the dark opening on the side of the wall facing the river, a steady, grim trickle staining the stone beneath it. But after assessing the 50-foot drop and the rather pungent landing zone in the moat, you decide to table that idea under Plan G, for grotesque and grievously unlikely. No, a direct, physical assault is impossible. The only way in is to be let in, which means you need a disguise, a cover story, a reason to be there. This is the slow, patient game. You spend days watching the traffic that comes and goes. Farmers bringing carts of produce. A blacksmith delivering new hinges for the gate. A traveling friar seeking alms and a place to sleep. Each one is a potential opportunity, but also a potential trap. The guards at the gate question everyone. They know the faces of the locals. A stranger is an object of immediate and intense suspicion. The paranoia of medieval life is a palpable thing. There are no identity cards, no way to verify who you are beyond the word of your mouth and the confidence of your bearing. Everyone is a potential liar, a potential thief, a potential enemy. You decide your best chance is to join the castle's ecosystem. You need to become part of the household. This is where you learn about the true walls of the castle, which are not made of stone. They are made of people. A medieval household is a tightly knit, fiercely hierarchical community. From the steward and the marshal down to the lowest scullery maid and stable boy, everyone has a place. Everyone knows everyone else. An unfamiliar face in the kitchen or the barracks would be as jarring and unwelcome as a wolf in the great hall. Your plan begins to form, a slow, meticulous strategy born of desperation. You cannot start at the castle. You must start in the village that huddles in its shadow. You need to build an identity, a legend. You discard your old scribe's assistant cover. This far from any major city, it's not plausible. Instead, you become Tom, a simple charcoal burner's lad from a distant shire, whose family was wiped out by the flux. It's a common enough tragedy to be believable. You are strong, willing to work, and ask for nothing more than a roof over your head and a meal in your belly. You spend 2 weeks in the village, actually doing the work. You find a job with a local farmer, mucking out his barn, mending his fences. It's grueling, familiar work, but you do it without complaint. You are quiet, humble, and you keep to yourself. You are slowly, patiently weaving yourself into the local tapestry. You drink at the village tavern, but not too much. You listen to the gossip. You learn the names of the baron's guards, their habits, their grudges. You learn that the head groom in the castle stables drinks too much and is always complaining about being short-handed. This is the crack in the wall you have been looking for. After a month, you make your move. You approach the head groom at the tavern, offering to buy him an ale. You tell him your story. You mention your fictional experience with horses. You are deferential, eager, and cheap to hire. He is drunk, short-staffed, and sees in you a solution to his problems. A few days later, he speaks to the castle steward. You are vetted, not with any official process, but by the simple fact that you have lived peacefully in the village for over a month and the farmer you worked for gives you a grudgingly positive recommendation. You are hired. You are given a space to sleep in a corner of the hayloft. You are in. The sense of triumph is immediately replaced by a new, more intense level of fear. You are now inside the wolf's den, and you are surrounded. Every moment is a test. Every conversation is a potential minefield. A slip of the tongue, a word that is too educated for a charcoal burner's boy, an accent that wavers for a second, any of it could betray you. You keep your head down. You work hard. You clean stables, groom horses, and polish leather until your hands are raw. You make yourself useful, invisible, and forgettable. You are playing the long game, waiting for your chance to observe the Baron, to learn his routines, to find the single moment of vulnerability you will need. Getting close to him is another matter entirely. As a stable boy, you are at the absolute bottom of the castle's social ladder. The Baron is a remote figure, seen only when he rides out with his hunting party. You are a piece of the furniture, utterly beneath his notice. This is both a protection and a curse. You are invisible, but you are also powerless. Your world is the stench of manure and horse sweat, a far cry from the Baron's private chambers. Your infiltration has succeeded on its first level, but you are still a world away from your target. The stone walls were the easy part. The human walls are proving to be far higher and much harder to climb. The days and weeks inside Greymarl blur into a monotonous cycle of grueling labor and sleepless, paranoid nights. You are a ghost in the machine of the castle household. You muck out stalls, haul water, and polish tack. Your hands, once trained for the delicacy of a fatal thrust, are now calloused and stained from hard, honest work. You spend 2 months mucking out stalls and learning more about equine digestion than you ever wanted to know. You start to suspect your real mission is to become the most knowledgeable stable boy in the kingdom. But all the while, you are watching, listening. Your mind is a sponge, soaking up every detail. You learn the guards' patrol schedules, the name of the cook's cat, the fact that the steward waters down the wine he serves the men at arms. You learn that Baron Albrecht is pathologically predictable. Every evening, after his meal, he walks the castle's western rampart alone, looking out over the river. He dismisses his personal guards, valuing a few moments of solitary contemplation. It's a small vanity, a tiny crack in his armor of paranoia, and it is the opportunity you have been bleeding for. The night you choose is moonless and starless, with a raw wind howling around the battlements, a wind that will help muffle any sound. Getting to the rampart from the stables is a mission in itself. It requires you to cross the open bailey, climb a narrow spiral staircase used by servants, and traverse a section of the upper floor of the keep. You have paced the route out in your mind 100 times. You move through the sleeping castle like a phantom. The skills honed in the monastery, the silent walk, the controlled breathing, all come back to you. You are no longer Tom the stable boy. You are the weapon that has been waiting for its moment to strike. You find the Baron exactly where you knew he would be, a dark silhouette against the even darker sky. The wind whips his cloak around him. He is humming a tuneless, self-satisfied little melody. For a moment, the sheer audacity of what you are about to do freezes you. You are a peasant's son, about to extinguish the life of a nobleman in his own fortress. You are an ant about to fell an oak tree. But the moment passes. You are a tool, and this is your purpose. You slide from the shadows behind him, your dagger in hand. The plan is to be silent. A ghost. A quick, clean cut across the throat. He will be dead before he even knows you are there. But the world is never perfect. As you raise your arm, a loose stone shifts under your boot. It makes a tiny scraping sound, barely audible over the wind. But the Baron, a man who has lived his life in suspicion, hears it. He turns, not with the slow confusion of Cassian, but with the lightning reflex of a predator. His eyes widen, not in fear, but in rage. He opens his mouth to shout. There is no time for finesse. You abandon the silent cut and lunge, driving your dagger with all your strength into his chest. He grunts, a wet, choked sound, as the blade sinks in. But he is a strong man. He doesn't fall. He grabs your wrist with an iron grip, his other hand clawing at your face. And he screams. A raw, gurgling cry for his guards that the wind snatches and throws across the courtyard. The plan was to be silent. Instead, the current situation is best described as loud and stabby, which was not one of the approaches covered in your training manual. Bells begin to clang across the castle. Shouts erupt from the barracks. The entire fortress explodes into a hive of angry, armed wasps. You wrench your dagger free and the Baron stumbles back, clutching his chest, before slumping to the stone floor. You have no time to confirm the kill. The castle is now a sealed death trap. The drawbridge is being raised. The portcullis is crashing down. You are trapped. Your only thought is escape. Not escape from the castle, that's impossible, but escape from the immediate net that is closing around you. You sprint from the rampart, back towards the servants' staircase. Guards are already pouring into the courtyard, torches flooding the space with chaotic, dancing light. You make it to the staircase just as two men-at-arms start up it. You don't hesitate. You hurl yourself at the one in front, using your momentum to send both of them tumbling back down the narrow, winding stairs in a crash of armor and bone. You scramble through the upper floors, your heart hammering against your ribs. Your intimate knowledge of the castle's layout is your only advantage. You know the dark corridors, the empty chambers, the loose floorboard that hides a small crawlspace. You are a rat in a maze, and the exterminators are everywhere. You can hear them shouting, calling your name, or rather, the name you gave them. Find the stable boy. Find Tom. He killed the Baron. Your painstakingly created identity has become your death warrant. Your desperate flight lasts for what feels like an eternity, but it can only have been minutes. You find yourself cornered in the castle's mews, the place where the hunting hawks are kept. The birds are spooked, shrieking and beating their wings against their cages. There are no more doors, no more secret passages. The guards burst in, their swords and spears leveled. You are hopelessly outnumbered. You raise your bloody dagger, not with any hope of victory, but out of pure, defiant instinct. It's a futile gesture. A heavy spear butt smashes into the side of your head, and the world dissolves into a silent, painless black. You wake up to the sound of dripping water and the groan of your own body. You are in a place devoid of light, chained to a damp stone wall. The air is cold and thick with the smell of mold, rust, and despair. This is the dungeon. Your mission has ended in the most catastrophic failure imaginable. The aftermath of being caught is where the true horror of your profession reveals itself. The organization does not negotiate. They do not stage daring rescues. A captured agent is a compromised agent, a liability to be written off. You are utterly, completely alone. The castle's steward, a man with cold, dead eyes, oversees your interrogation personally. He wants to know who you are and who sent you. This is where you learn that torture was a routine and accepted part of the medieval justice system, a tool used to get to the truth. Your captors are not sadists taking pleasure in your pain, not exactly. They are simply following procedure. The methods are systematic and brutal. They start with the simple things. You are deprived of sleep, left in the darkness with only the sound of dripping water and your own terror. When that doesn't work, they introduce the tools of their trade. They stretch you on a rack, the slow, agonizing separation of your joints a symphony of pain. They use thumbscrews. They show you hot irons and explain, in calm, methodical detail, exactly what they will do to your eyes. You try to hold on to the lies Valerius drilled into you. You are just a disgruntled servant. You hated the Baron for kicking your favorite dog. The stories are flimsy, pathetic, and they fall apart under the relentless, systematic application of pain. Historians still argue about the effectiveness of torture in extracting reliable information, with many contending that victims would simply say anything their captors wanted to hear just to make the pain stop. You discover the truth of this firsthand. After a day, or a week, time has lost all meaning. You would confess to killing the Pope if you thought it would make them stop. But you don't know anything of value. You don't know Valerius's real name. You don't know the location of any other sanctuaries. Your ignorance is your only shield, and it is also your doom. They don't believe you. They believe you are part of a larger conspiracy, and they will tear you apart, piece by piece, to uncover it. You learn of a particularly cruel device they have, though you only hear them discuss it. They call it the scavenger's daughter, an English invention. Unlike the rack which pulls you apart, it's a metal frame that compresses you, squeezing your body into a tight ball until blood pours from your nose and ears. The thought of it is almost worse than the reality of the rack. As the guards drag you from your cell for another session, you reflect that your career has had a very consistent theme. Things starting badly and getting progressively worse. At least you're consistent. Your life as an assassin is over. You are no longer a person. You are a screaming piece of meat from which information is being extracted. Your end will not be swift or clean. It will be a slow, drawn-out descent into madness and agony in a dark, wet hole, forgotten by the organization that sent you, your name and your life erased as if you had never been born. This is the price of failure. Not a quick death in battle, but an eternity of pain in the dark. Your world has shrunk to a universe of pain, darkness, and the rhythmic drip of water. Time is a meaningless concept. You exist only in the agonizing moments when they drag you from your cell and the blessed, black oblivion of unconsciousness that sometimes follows. Your body is a ruin, your mind a frayed tapestry of terror. You are waiting to die. And then, something changes. One night, the routine is broken. Instead of the heavy, shuffling steps of your usual tormentors, you hear muffled thuds, a sharp gasp, and then silence. You brace yourself for a new form of agony, but it doesn't come. The door to your cell creaks open. A figure stands there, silhouetted by a single, low-burning torch. You flinch, expecting a blow. But the figure enters, followed by another. They move with a liquid grace that is unnervingly familiar. You are being carried through the night by men who move like smoke. For a moment, your broken mind concocts a fantasy. You've died and these are angels. Then one of them silently slits the throat of a drowsy guard you pass in a corridor, and you realize the administration of the afterlife is perhaps more hands-on than you were led to believe. They don't speak to you. They handle you like a sack of broken bones, which is a fairly accurate description of your current state. They get you over the castle wall in a terrifying drop, cushioned by a waiting pile of hay on a stolen cart. The last thing you see of Greymarl is its grim silhouette shrinking against a sky that is just beginning to turn gray. You have been rescued. Or, more accurately, you have been repossessed. You drift in and out of consciousness for days. You have vague impressions of forests, hidden trails, and the taste of bitter herbs being forced down your throat. When you finally wake for good, it is not to the Spartan austerity of Valerius's monastery. You are in a soft bed, in a sun-drenched room with arched windows that look out onto a scene of impossible beauty. It is a courtyard garden, enclosed by elegant white stone walls. Fountains glitter in the sunlight. The air is heavy with the scent of jasmine and roses, and exotic birds with jewel-toned feathers flit among pomegranate trees. Women in flowing silk robes walk the garden paths, their laughter like music. You are served sweet wine in a silver cup and fed delicate morsels of fruit and spiced meat. It is a sensual paradise, a place so stunningly perfect it feels like a fever dream. And that, you will soon learn, is precisely the point. It's so beautiful and peaceful it makes you suspicious. Nothing this nice comes without a terrible, terrible catch. Your body heals slowly. A quiet, skilled physician tends to your broken bones and infected wounds. For weeks, you are allowed to simply exist in this idyllic sanctuary, your every need met. The psychological scars, however, are far deeper. You are haunted by nightmares of the dungeon, by the feeling of your joints being pulled from their sockets. You are a hollowed-out thing, a vessel waiting to be filled. When you are strong enough to walk the garden paths on your own, Valerius appears. He looks different here, less like a grim instructor and more like a scholar priest. He walks with you by the fountains and he tells you a story. He tells you that your capture was not a failure. It was your final initiation. You were sent on a mission that you were meant to fail, a mission designed to push you to the very brink of death. You have faced the void, he says. You have been broken down to your essential components. You have been tested, and you have not been found wanting. You endured. You did not break. You did not betray the order, because you had nothing to betray. He leads you to a grander chamber, where an older man is seated on silken cushions. This is the master. He has the same unnerving stillness as Valerius, but magnified 100-fold. His eyes seem to look straight through you, into the shattered ruins of your soul. And he explains the true nature of the organization you serve. He tells you that you are part of a brotherhood whose lineage stretches back to the fortress of Alamet in the Persian mountains, to the great Hassan I-Saba, the old man of the mountain. He explains how this historical figure, faced with the overwhelming power of the Seljuk Empire, did not raise vast armies. Instead, he forged a new kind of weapon, the fidai, the self-sacrificer. A single, devoted agent who could slip through the cracks of power and remove a key general, a vizier, or a caliph, sowing more terror and chaos with one dagger thrust than an entire army could with 1,000 swords. This, the master explains, is your sacred heritage. And then he addresses the paradise around you. He tells you that your ordeal in the dungeon was a journey through hell. And this place? This is the reward. He leans in, his voice a hypnotic whisper, and tells you that for a brief time, as you lay broken in your cell, you died. Your soul left your body, and the order guided it to this place, a secret earthly glimpse of the paradise that awaits all who serve with unwavering faith. He tells you the wine you drink is the wine of heaven, the music you hear is its melody. He is giving you a taste of the prize for your devotion. Modern historians still fiercely debate the tales of the paradise gardens of the Hashishin, with many arguing they are exaggerated propaganda spread by their enemies like Marco Polo, while others believe they may have been a real, if sophisticated, form of psychological indoctrination. As you sit there, your mind still fragile, the distinction is meaningless. What he is saying feels more real than the stone walls of the dungeon. He is offering you an explanation for your suffering, a purpose for your pain. He is replacing your trauma with a divine experience. To reinforce this, he has one of the women bring you a small, ornate pipe. It is filled with a dark, sticky resin. Hashish. He encourages you to smoke it, telling you it is a key that can temporarily unlock the gates of perception, to help you understand. You inhale. The smoke is sweet and heady. The world around you softens. The colors of the garden become impossibly vibrant. The music of the fountains seems to speak to you. The master's words echo in your mind, no longer just a story, but a profound truth. The psychological control is absolute. He has taken your near-death experience and reframed it as a spiritual resurrection. This is the moment he bestows upon you the Order's central creed, the philosophy that will now govern your entire existence. Nothing is true, he says, his voice cutting through the haze in your mind. Everything is permitted. He explains the devastating simplicity of this doctrine. Nothing you thought was real, not the laws of kings, not the morality of priests, not the simple truths of the village you grew up in, is solid. They are all illusions, constructs created by men to control other men. There is no right or wrong, no good or evil. There is only the mission. There is only the will of the Order. If nothing is true, you are freed from the chains of conventional morality. And if you are free, then everything is permitted in the service of your cause. Killing a man is not a sin, it is a tactical necessity. Lying, stealing, betraying a friendship, these are not moral failings, they are tools to be used. So, nothing is true and everything is permitted. You file this away. It sounds like a fantastic excuse for not having to muck out stables ever again, but you suspect the application is a bit more specific. You look around at the garden, at the serene faces of the others here. You see now that they are not just trainees, they are believers. They have all, in their own way, been broken and remade like you. They have all been shown paradise. They are all bound by this terrifying, liberating philosophy. You came to this organization as a desperate peasant, a starving animal seeking escape. You were forged into a weapon of flesh and bone. But now, you have been transformed again. You are no longer just a tool. You are a true believer. Your own will has been supplanted by the will of the Order. The physical chains of the dungeon have been replaced by far heavier, far more unbreakable chains of faith. You are more trapped now in this beautiful garden than you ever were in that dark cell. You have been given a purpose, a cause, a divine promise. You are one of the chosen. And you will kill anyone, do anything, sacrifice everything for the men who saved you from hell by building you a more beautiful, more elaborate prison. Years pass. The seasons turn, and you turn with them, a ghost moving through the tapestry of the world. You are no longer the frightened boy or the broken man. You are the Master's finest instrument. The creeds of the Order are not just principles you follow. They are the very marrow in your bones. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. This philosophy has made you an artist of death, a virtuoso of violence. You have become a legend, a whisper in the dark. Your name, or rather the dozen names you use, is spoken with fear in the halls of power from Canterbury to Constantinople. It's a bit like being the kingdom's most successful rat catcher, only your rats are decorated dukes and greedy bishops. You have infiltrated impregnable fortresses, slipped past the most loyal guards, and delivered the Order's judgment with a chilling, surgical precision. You have used poisons so subtle they were mistaken for divine retribution, and blades so swift the victim's guards found him dead before the alarm was ever raised. You have stood in the Paradise Garden many times now. You have smoked the hashish and listened to the Master's hypnotic words, each visit reinforcing the psychological chains that bind you. The garden no longer feels like a reward. It feels like maintenance, the regular oiling and sharpening of a tool. You have seen new recruits arrive, their faces a mixture of fear and desperation, just as yours once was. You have seen them broken, indoctrinated, and sent out into the world. You have also seen the ones who fail, who never return. Their faces are a silent, ever-present warning. But success carries its own poison, a slow-acting venom called paranoia. The very skills that keep you alive are the ones that are driving you mad. You cannot trust anyone. The friendly merchant who shares his fire with you on the road might be an agent of an enemy, trying to uncover your identity. The pretty serving girl who smiles at you might be a spy. Every kindness is a potential trap. Every coincidence is a potential conspiracy. The philosophy that gives you your strength also becomes your greatest weakness. If nothing is true, how can you trust the orders you are given? How can you trust Valerius, or even the Master himself? You are an aging weapon. Your body, though honed and hardened, is beginning to feel the phantom pains of the Greymarl dungeon on cold nights. You are not as fast as you once were. The new recruits are younger, quicker, more ruthless. Historians still argue whether veteran Fidai of the Nizari Ismailis were retired with honor, or if they were often eliminated by the Order itself to protect its secrets once their physical prowess began to wane. This academic debate is your daily, waking nightmare. Every new mission you receive could be your last, not because you might fail, but because you are designed to succeed at a task that will ensure you do not return. You start seeing signals everywhere, the Order's secret language in the mundane world. This practice of steganography, hiding messages in plain sight, becomes the lens through which you view everything. A beggar's cough is a signal. The specific color of a scarf hung from a window is a warning. You find yourself analyzing the flight patterns of pigeons, convinced they are relaying messages. This, you realize, is probably a sign that you have spent a little too much time in a very strange line of work. You cannot form attachments. That lesson was carved into your soul with the death of the dog and the goat all those years ago. You have no friends, no family, no love. To love something is to give your enemies a hostage. You are utterly, profoundly alone, a ghost haunted by the ghosts of all the people you have killed. Then, one day, the calls simply stop. No more messengers with cryptic instructions. No more summons to the garden. There is only silence. The Order has not eliminated you. They have done something far crueler. They have forgotten you. They have left you to drift. The Order gives you a pension, which amounts to a bag of coins left for you at a pre-arranged dead drop and a deafening silence. It's their way of saying, "Thank you for your service. Please don't make us kill you on your way out." You are free. But freedom is a concept you no longer understand. You settle in a small, quiet port town, a place where no one knows you, under a name you have never used before. You buy a small, sturdy house with thick walls and only one door. You spend your days watching the ships come and go, a tide of humanity that you can never be a part of. The silence does not bring peace. It amplifies the paranoia. Without the focus of a mission, your mind begins to feed on itself. Why did they let you go? Are they watching you? Is this a test of your loyalty? Is the baker who gives you your daily bread an observer? Is the fishmonger who never meets your eye an executioner in waiting? You bar your door at night and sleep with a dagger under your pillow. You trust no food you haven't prepared yourself. You practice your old exercises, trying to stave off the slow decay of age, but your body betrays you. Your joints ache. Your hands tremble slightly. Your life, which began in the squalor of a peasant's hovel, has come full circle. You escaped a prison of mud and poverty only to build a far more elaborate one inside your own mind. You have no lord, no reeve, no master to command you. You are your own jailer. The historical order of assassins was eventually crushed, their fortress at Alamet overrun by the unstoppable Mongol hordes in the 13th century. Their power, which seemed absolute, was wiped from the map. Your own power has faded in the same way, not with a bang, but with the slow, inexorable erosion of time. You sit in your small, dark room, listening to the rain on the roof. You are a repository of deadly secrets, a master of 1,000 ways to kill, and there is no one left to fight. You are a sharpened blade locked in a box, slowly beginning to rust. You see shadows move in the corners of your eyes. You hear whispers in the wind that sound like Valerius's voice. You have escaped the fields, the dungeon, the battlefield. But you can never escape yourself. Your life does not end in a blaze of glory, nor in the agony of a torture chamber. It ends here, in the quiet, suffocating prison of your own mind, a friendless, forgotten old man, starting at shadows, forever waiting for a threat that may or may not exist, the final, lonely victim of the creed that shaped your entire existence. And so, the story of the assassin comes to its quiet, lonely close. The frantic escape through the city, the desperate fight in the castle, the hypnotic promises of the garden, all of it now fades, like the last embers of a dying fire. Let the image of that solitary, paranoid figure dissolve, leaving behind only the gentle, rhythmic sound of the rain on the roof, a soft and steady patter to soothe your mind. Feel the tension release from your shoulders, a slow and heavy unwinding as the world of daggers and shadows recedes into the distance, becoming nothing more than a half-remembered dream. The silence he feared is now a gift to you, a deep and welcoming calm that fills your room. There are no threats here, no secrets to decipher in the dark, only the simple, peaceful reality of your own comfortable bed and the gentle weight of your blankets. Your own journey for tonight is over. All that is left is to let go, to allow the last echoes of the tale to drift away, and to sink into the deep, restorative, and well-deserved sleep that awaits you now.